good evening, wherever you are in the world. You know who I am, and you know who's on the red couch. Yes, I have him, Uncle James Ali Bashir. I got him. He hasn't gone on the run like a lot of you thought he's been on the run. I've got him. Uncle, where have you been?
I've been busy. I've been busy in the Ukraine.
Have you been conveniently busy or just busy?
I've been busy. I'm making a champion in Oleksandr Usyk.
What happened to the other former champion?
God only knows. Only God and Wladimir Klitschko knows what happened that night.
Well, I got it right this time.
It's about time. I mean, you have 13 tries, 13, 14. I mean, if you keep throwing the dart at the board, eventually you're going to hit something.
Wait, hold on. I gave you good reasons. I gave you... Oh, and there's a few... Wait, hold on.
No, you gave me good reasons.
Three fighters I brought up.
You gave me good reasons in the Pulev fight. In every other fight, you gave me good reasons.
Right.
Didn't pan out.
I have something that's nice here that I can bring for the Pulev fight. First and foremost, I thought Pulev would be able to get in and get out because of his movement, the jab he had, and the power.
Oh.
Now, hold on. Let me explain this out.
Fight.
No. Let's not go there. Let's go back to the Pulev fight because I got something here. Now, let me talk about this canvas because we're going to talk. That canvas, that night that Pulev fought Klitschko, I want to know why Pulev seemed like he was stuck in mud from round one. Like he got in, couldn't get out, and for the rest of the night, like he was fighting in quicksand. And I couldn't understand, why was he fighting in quicksand? Lo and behold, we're in Germany again, the Fury camp are out there, and they find that the canvas has got 3 sets of extra canvas, like padding in there, right? That's the first thing. The British Boxing Board of Control said it was unsafe. It was considered a trampoline and takes the energy, or sucks the energy out of life out of a person's legs. So if we go back to the Pulev fight, I'd like to ask the question, was that canvas the same canvas that Klitschko used against Tyson Fury? That's the first question I ask.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Well, okay.
This canvas, we use this canvas basically because of the calf Wladimir had injured. You know, we chose to use that canvas because of the...
So Wladimir Klitschko was training on that canvas, but Tyson Fury wasn't. So then why didn't Tyson Fury get the time to train on that canvas as well then?
Well, we wasn't going to call Tyson Fury up and tell him that we want him.
We're going to break this down. We're breaking this down. We got to break a few things down. First of all, we'll break it down, and then you can tell me where I'm coming up short, and then you can give me when I got it right. Okay. First of all, we went back to when I said to you about Wladimir Klitschko shaving the sides of his head when Tyson called him an old man. Wladimir Klitschko is a control freak, from what I've noticed, and he decided to shave his sides so Tyson wouldn't have any advantage. Then he goes, when Tyson and him are standing next to one another, suddenly he gains 3 inches in height. What do I find out? He's been putting things inside his feet, his shoes, so he gets taller. Now, anybody who will go to those extents to do those things is a complete control freak, and it makes me wonder about the other things that he's possibly capable of doing. And if Mick Hennessy and Team Fury didn't stand up to Vitali Klitschko, which we saw in the video, Tyson would have been bouncing around on that trampoline as well. And then it goes back to that fight that Orlando Solis, where he damaged his ankle, broke and twisted his ankle. Never the same fighter after that fight. Questions have to be asked. I mean, that canvas, I've never seen a canvas like that ever in boxing. Or people pull up stuff like that. So you either one of 2 things. It was, shut up, take the money, you're lucky to have this fight, it's a payday, because Tyson was the mandatory. Now it was either they didn't have professional enough camps, or the Fury camp was wise to the tricks and nipped it in the bud early. There was also Glovegate, the hand wraps. We all know the games that are played by the Klitschkos, and you know the games as well. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
But Wladimir, in this fight, Wladimir was beaten.
I do not know the games you're talking about.
Wladimir Klitschko was beaten before he even got in the ring. He was a beaten man. All the games that he usually plays and he gets one up on, The only person now who's going to need therapy is Wladimir Klitschko. He has to get up every morning now and he has to think to himself, wow, I'm not world champion anymore. He has to go back and watch himself get outboxed 8 rounds to 3. He has to now somehow come up with a game plan, find a heart from somewhere to now fight Tyson Fury. He's going to have to find a game plan. He's going to have to find some heart. What world heavyweight champion? It was sad watching a world heavyweight champion cling for dear life. Cling for dear life. Instead of show some fight and show some desire to be world champion. And this for so many years is why people have been so critical of Wladimir Klitschko. So, now I've said all that and I've vented to you. And I kind of feel now, you know, that there are other factors behind various fighters. It's not just about, as you said before, quite clear to me, it's not just about being able to fight. It's about having, you know, a professional training camp or professional team. Which now, when you put it all together and you look at what happened with Team Fury and what's happened along the line, maybe you knew more than, I don't know. So, the floor is yours, Uncle Bashir.
I mean, you said a mouthful. So what is there left for me to say? I might as well go to bed now.
No, this is a two-way thing. Usually, you are the.
No, I'm just. I mean, Fury won the fight there.
No. We know Fury won the fight. I want you to try and answer those other questions. Those other question marks.
If the canvas was too thick and Team Fury wanted to remove the canvas, make it smaller, make it thinner, then I don't have no complaints about that.
Is that fair?
Huh?
Is that fair?
It wasn't illegal. He's the champion of the world. He had the right to choose.
According to the British Boxing Board of Control, it was unsafe.
But it wasn't illegal. I've seen that 1,000 times in this sport. Sonny Liston was a specialist at that.
But does that make it right?
Huh?
Does that make it right?
But does it make it wrong?
I think it does.
If it was, wrong,
I think it does make it wrong.
Wait. If the British Commission thought it was wrong, wouldn't they have fined us? They would have said, we're going to charge you a fine? No, there's nothing wrong.
But it wasn't under the British Boxing Board of Control. The fight wasn't under the British Boxing Board of Control, was it?
But the champion calls the size of the ring.
It wasn't for the...
Wait a minute. You said, let me talk. You said
okay.
The champion calls the size of the ring.
Yeah.
And the champion is the one who decides how thick the padding is in the ring. All right? Now, if Team Fury says, no, we don't want this here. We think that this is unsafe. We don't want it. And blah, blah, blah. And they got their way. They took the foam out.
How many
to a degree. But I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Vitali Klitschko agreed to it with his own people. You know, they agreed to it with his attorney and so on.
They agreed to it. From what I saw, Mick Hennessy and Team Fury were having none of it, according to the video I saw.
Okay, all right, no problem. But it wasn't.
And I have to take this moment to say thank you to Ringtone Boxing, Tony. Thank you so much. Appreciated for that. Yes. So I just had to say, because he was the one who filmed it all. So thank you to him for that piece of information. Else we would not have known. We would not have known.
Okay. Good for Tony. Tony, why don't you get a job as a private eye? You're in the wrong business, Tony. You should get business.
No, I think that... You know, we talk about level playing fields. Now, if Wladimir Klitschko or Team Klitschko are prepared to do that, what else are they prepared to bend? If not break the rules, bend the rules. What other rules are you bending? We had Glovegate. The only thing we didn't have was, I don't know, if Vitali gate in the dressing room. Because I heard stories. In fact, I heard how Vitali was messing around Derek Chisora in the dressing room. Right? Back when Chisora fought Vitali... No, it was Wladimir was messing Chisora around in his dressing room. And that's why when Chisora came out, he sat at Wladimir. That's what happened. That's what I heard. That's all the hand wraps all the time. So, putting the wraps on, turning it off, put it on and off all the time. And that's why Chisora turned around and spat at Vladimir to say, have that. That's what I heard. And I'm sorry, but after seeing...
What can I say?
Recent events, it's either one of two things. It's either I'm onto something and you can't say, you know what, you're right, hands up. Or I'm completely so mad that you're thinking I'm not even going to bother engaging. It's one or the other. Or it could be just a bit of both.
He did nothing illegal.
But he bent the rules.
We made a ring. And the Fury camp did not agree with the ring. They removed the padding. They made the padding less, and the fight went on. But nobody was charged a fine. Nobody said that we attempted to do something illegal. It was just not to their liking. And because it wasn't, we took the padding out. The fight went on. End of story.
Okay, then tell me the advantages Vladimir would have had in the fight had the things gone the way that the status quo, the way
I think that it would have slowed Fury's legs down. I think so. But it also might have slowed Vladimir's legs down.
But if he'd been training on it already, there's less chance of it slowing Vladimir's legs down because he's used to it.
Well, who said he was training on it?
I don't know. Maybe he was.
No, I think that...
But if he had an ankle injury, let's say if he had an ankle injury, then maybe he would have been training on that canvas. If he had the ankle injury that was reported,
well,
then
maybe
he training on the canvas. And if he was, training on the canvas...
The fact of the matter is that we've beaten a dead horse here.
We're not beating a bit... Because we're now questioning the legacy of the former numero uno of the heavyweight division. We are now questioning and asking.
You can't question the legacy. You know why? Because he didn't do what Margarito did.
He got caught.
No, he didn't do what Margarito did. He didn't tamper with the raps.
He got caught.
He didn't tamper with the raps. They didn't find him using anabolic steroids or something.
Let me ask. Hold on.
Vladimir Klitschko's been an exemplary champion.
Okay, you're comparing two different people. Margarito does not have a monopoly in Europe. Vladimir Klitschko has, and the Klitschko team have got their own doctors, their own refs, their own judges, their own canvases, their own gloves. Come on, you can't compare the two people.
Well, guess what? We've got to win the title back. And now the ball is in another court. So let's see what Fury and them does with it. We've got to come and try to win the title back.
We know, listen, you know what I would say? If I were the champion now, I don't think it's much rocket science. You made me go through hell to actually get in the ring and fight with you. You think I'll make it easy for you and you return? I'm just going to, open the floodgates for you, have a nice canvas for you, make it easy for you. No, I'll take you for twice the hell. Well, wouldn't you? It's not breaking the rules. It's just bending them.
No, we gotta box him again. I spoke to Vladimir. He said that he's gonna fight him again. He opted to act on his rematch clause, and they're gonna fight again. So all we can do now is wait for the fight to happen. I think it'll be a better fight than the first one.
Yes,
I think both of them are going to step up in the second fight.
Your man's going to be on his back this time. This time he's only come back to be laid on his back. That's all that's going to happen. He's only come back to get laid on his back. Because what can he do differently? He's going to grab a bit more. He's got no heart. So what are you going to do? You're going to train him and give him a heart? You're going to train and give him a heart? The man was mentally beaten.
Well, I think that Fury is going to bring out the best in Vladimir. He brought out the worst in that fight. And both of them brought the worst out of each other in that fight. So now I think both of them left something to be desired. And I think the second fight is going to be far better than the first one. I think the second one is going to be far more action and taking more risk in the second fight. Because Wladimir Klitschko has got something. Wladimir Klitschko's got something to prove now. And Tyson Fury's got to prove to Wladimir, I am the champion. I'm going to show you. Okay. So, yeah, I want to see this fight.
Immediate rematches. 9 times out of 10 don't bode very well for the guy having the immediate rematch who lost. He got beat 8 rounds. 8 rounds, you've got to be 8 rounds, convincingly, clearly. In the championship rounds.
Because I felt, again, that he just did not do enough. Neither one of them did a lot. Tyson got to be mad with himself, too. Neither one of those guys did a lot. But Tyson did enough to pull off the victory.
Well, I would say 8 rounds to 3. I think that's enough, personally. It's not about what Tyson did do. It's about what Klitschko didn't do. As numero uno, heavyweight champion in the world. Okay, in the championship rounds, what did Klitschko do? Apart from a flying headbutt. Can you explain to me about a flying headbutt?
Both of those guys were doing things illegal in there. Tyson and Wladimir.
Vladimir was flying the headbutt. I saw that.
But Tyson did some things too. Both of them were doing things that wasn't in the rules. Tyson and Wladimir, they was getting rough in it. They were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing to each other. Both guys. Go back and look at the fight.
I saw the headbutt. I saw the blatant flying headbutt.
I don't know whether it was by design or error or just emotion or whatever it was. But both guys were practicing it.
What about the fact of there's always a guy there that's got your number? There's always a guy that's better than you. Could just be that Vladimir's time is over. I mean, Fury called it. He said he was an old man before the fight. You're an old man. If I can't beat you, then.
Well, the rematch will tell the story. The rematch, in my mind, is a must-win fight.
Well, the last fight was a must-win fight. Where was the passion in your...
I'm saying not as much. Yeah, when you're the champion, every fight is a must-win fight. But the rematch is a must-win fight.
Where was the passion?
At 39 years old, he'll be 40 by the time the fight takes place, and it's a must-win fight.
Where was the passion from the champion, defending champion? Show me at what point, at round 1 to round 12, where was the passion?
Only God and Wladimir Klitschko can answer that question. Not me, not Jonathan Banks. Nobody can answer that question.
It's also noted, I was a bit harsh on Jonathan Banks in my criticism of him, because no matter what Banks was telling Wladimir was doing what he wanted to do, which was absolutely nothing. Banks was giving him instructions, but Wladimir was unable to follow those instructions to the T. Why is that?
Like I said, nobody knows what happened in his mind, his spirituality, his physical attributes. No one knows. He hasn't expressed that to me. I talked to him directly after the fight. I talked to him the morning after the fight. You know, the night after the fight, I spoke to him in his hotel room, and I spoke to him the morning extensively afterwards. You know, he didn't express anything, you know. So only God and Wladimir knows what's going on.
Tommy Brooks, a trainer that you know very well, said that Tyson Fury wouldn't get out of the first round if Wladimir Klitschko jumped on him. When I rang him up afterwards,
before we went to the arena,
yes,
Wladimir and I, we had gone out for a walk or something, and we came back into the hotel. Mm-hmm. And I was going to my room. He was headed to his suite. And I stopped him. I said, Wladimir, you're going to have to jump on Tyson. You're going to have to jump on him. Immediately, you're going to have to take the fight to him, and you're going to have to jump on him. You're going to have to dictate this pace. I said, don't let him get away from you. Don't let her get away from you. Because when I say don't let her get away, I mean don't let those rounds pass without you doing some damage. And he didn't do that. He didn't, or he couldn't do that. You know, and some accolades has to be given to Tyson because Tyson prevented him from getting into a groove. One thing that you don't want a young guy like Tyson to do is to get into a groove, to get into a rhythm, because it's the hardest thing to break. Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened in my mind. He allowed Tyson to get into a groove, and you can see Tyson after the 3rd and 4th round, you could see him getting loose in there. He started relaxing and started, you know, playing with the clock, you know. doing what he wanted to do, and that's what I saw things getting out of hand.
What were your thoughts when you saw Tyson put his hands behind his back and look at Wladimir Klitschko, Roy Jones style?
I said, this is not a good thing, because he's that same groove that I was saying, don't let him get into. He's found that groove now. Now it's going to be a really complicated fight. So
talk us through, as the fight's going on, you've got Jonathan Banks, you've got Klitschko in the corner. You're the experienced trainer, the far, over 40 years experience in boxing. How does that dynamic work? You're seeing a fight slipping away. How does your role work with that?
I'm trying to find out. Oh yeah, my battery is going down from here.
Okay.
Give me 1 minute, please.
Okay. We're talking about dynamics. Wladimir Klitschko is obviously going out to go to the next round. Jonathan Banks is in the corner, and you. How does the dynamics work when you can see there's an issue and trainer and fighter are not listening? Where do you come into that? And how do you come into that? Or do you sit back and watch everything?
I sit back and watch everything. I don't think that anything I can do at that point by interjecting, I can only cause confusion. So I sit back as the assistant trainer and I let the hand play out. That's the wisest thing to do, I think, in that case, because my coming to the corner and inviting ideas can only be disruptive. So I sat back and I watched it.
I've seen corners work well where you've got one trainer saying one thing and the trainer says, no, you know what, you better jump in, give them different ideas. So one trainer will jump out and the other trainer will jump in, the assistant will jump in, and they change over. When they feel, I'm got quiet in this, you handle this, and one takes over. Has that ever happened between yourself and Jonathan in any fights, or has it always been the case of...
No, not at all, not at all, not at all.
Do you think that could ever work? Would that have worked in the fight?
I don't get that impression that could work between Jonathan Banks and I don't get that impression. I don't get that impression. I get the impression Jonathan wants to prove himself by handling the whole situation by himself. And I'll let him do it. I give him the respect and the space that he needs to do it. If Jonathan never asks me anything, he never pumps me for any information. In fact, he hasn't done that as Wladimir Klitschko's trainer. And I think in my mind, I think that it might be a mistake. I mean, I think that it might be a mistake that he's not purging me for information that might be helpful.
Without meaning to sound disrespectful, what's the point of you being in Wladimir Klitschko's corner? I don't get it, because you are the wealth of wisdom, yet you're just in the corner like, I don't know, just.
Well, I've come to a conclusion that different things make different fighters comfortable. All right? He chose Jonathan Banks to be his trainer. And after that day, I just left it alone. I said, actually, at first, when Emmanuel passed away, I was the trainer. He had dubbed me the trainer, and I was the trainer for several days, I believe it was. Several days, and then Wladimir came back to me and says, oh, no, Banks is going to lead the camp. Banks is going to, he's going to be the trainer. And I say, I just said, okay. I said, okay, and I moved back. Having said that, Emmanuel Stewart and I always had the kind of relationship where we would discuss every fight. We would discuss. He would call me 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we would talk for hours. Literally, we would talk for hours about strategy, about application, about what fights we thought were reminiscent of the fight we were having. We would compare different fights from the past to the fight that we were about to be in. And we would go over strategies together. He'd ask me, how would I approach it? And then he said, well, that either coincides with what I'm doing or it doesn't coincide with what I'm doing. but we would hash things out. And even in the camp, we would sit down, we'd have dinner, we'd sit down and talk. We'd even have arguments about the approach. But nonetheless, sit down with each other, and we would converse and go over strategy stuff. Banks and I don't have that kind of strategy. So we don't have that kind of camaraderie.
So why you just pick up yourself and just leave camp? What's the point? Unless it's just a money thing, then. I mean, why stick around? Why not invest your energies? I know you've got Usyk, which is a long-term investment.
Well, because my passion for the sport.
Sorry,
there are times for my passion for the sport and the passion for helping, and then there are other guys that come through the camp, that I've had a chance to engage with. There are many young fighters that come through the camp that I get a chance to work with. And I always prepare them to oppose Wladimir. That I enjoy doing what I do.
So you would still, but I just feel like you're being snubbed, though. It seems that you're being snubbed.
Well, I felt that way. I felt that way that I was being snubbed. But then I said, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. And by my patience, I happened to have met this young man, Oleksandr Usyk, and I worked with him for 2 days. For 2 days I worked with him. And he said, you're my guy. You're the guy that's going to train me. You're the guy that's going to guide me to the world championship. So it hasn't been a total failure, Wladimir Klitschko, let me say this about him. He has given me a platform. The best platform I've ever had, in that I've had opportunities, not only to travel the world, but I've had a platform like I've never had before in boxing. And by me being there, being the assistant trainer to Emmanuel for all of those years, it was a blessing, a benefit for me. And through it all, I wound up meeting this man, Oleksandr Usyk, who is now 8 or 9-0 with 8 or 9 KOs. And we work closely together. We have a good relationship. So it hasn't been a total failure.
Oleksandr Usyk, I know you've got a fight coming up, December 12th.
Yes.
Same night as Joshua White.
Yes.
Your thoughts on Oleksandr's fight?
Tough fight. We're fighting Pedro Rodriguez out of Miami. He's 21-1 with 19 knockouts. He's a Cuban national. And as we know, the Cuban fighters are some dangerous guys. They have such extensive amateur backgrounds and stuff, and they're very tricky, very smart fighters, and he can punch.
Okay.
But I feel that we're prepared to face off against anybody in the world because of our work ethic,
right?
Our planning. We put in almost 93 rounds of sparring for this fight, and we were ready to box. We're ready to box. I asked Usyk about an hour ago, could he fight tomorrow? He said, yeah, I can fight tomorrow. I feel like fighting tomorrow, So that's the kind of guy, the kind of fighter that I want him to communicate that to me, and I can see it in his eye. He said, yes, we can fight tomorrow. So we're going to go in there. We know this guy's a dangerous puncher, 19 KOs in 21 fights.
I don't know much about the guy he's fighting because I obviously actually haven't researched him.
So it's not much on the internet. Right. It's not much. His only fight on the internet is the fight that he lost, and he lost that to Magomed Abdul-Salamov, right. And he tried to fight a heavyweight and got knocked out. Right. But that's the only thing that's on the internet. So we're going into this fight blindly.
Is that the sort of fight you want to be taking on the verge of a world title shot?
I think it's the kind of fight that we have to take if we're going to fight for the world championship. we have to listen to that ring as we go. And that's what we plan to do. We're going to make adjustments as we go. We're going to go out there and, wisely in the first 2 rounds and see what we got in front of us. See what we got in front of us. And once we get a beat on that, a pulse on that, then we're going to go ahead and start operating on it.
What's your guy's durability like?
Oleksandr Usyk?
Yes.
He won the world's game.
Yes.
And he won the Olympic gold medal. And he has 300 amateur fights. Right. And in 300 fights, I think he lost 8 or 9.
Right.
And out of those 8 or 9 that he lost, he had 279 knockouts. So that's as good as it gets to me. I mean, 279 KOs and 300 fights. That's as good as it gets. So Pedro Rodriguez can punch, but like I told him today at the press conference, he's in with a puncher. So any move he making and he hear click, I said, don't worry, because that's the mind that you stepped on. When you take any kind of weight off that mind, it explodes. So he's a puncher, but he's in with a puncher. We're not going to shy away from him. We're going to fight him.
I was asked the other day.
To go to the.
I was asked the other day. People do respond to watched videos ago. And one gentleman said, "I love your interviews of Uncle Bashir. He gives you such insight, gives you such wisdom." He says, "Now you tell me, Ingram, who has Uncle Bashir trained and guided to a world title? Tell me what outstanding fighter Bashir has trained." So I thought I'd come and ask you that question directly. Which outstanding fighter have you trained?
I think the most outstanding guy that I've done, when you say work,
yeah,
I've worked in training camps. My forte comes from working in training camps.
Right.
And just because you didn't have a world champion does not dismiss the knowledge that you gain in those training camps.
Right.
I've worked in Muhammad Ali's training camp. In doing so, I worked in Matthew Saad Muhammad.
Yes.
Worked with camp with Mike McCallum, Donald Curry, Tim Witherspoon, Lennox Lewis. So you gather a lot of wisdom. You take a great trainer and great cut man, James Glenn, out of New York. I think Jimmy Glenn is about 83 years old now. Never had a world champion. Never had a world champion all these years. James Glenn has been in the game for at least 65 years, if I'm not mistaken, and never had a world champion. But you won't find one person in boxing to say anything bad about Jimmy Glenn. Right. And he never had a world champion. So that doesn't end a person's wisdom because you haven't been there. A lot of guys are given world champions. Right. They're given world champions. Nobody's the average trainer out there can't say that I've had this guy from the very beginning. I'm training Oleksandr Usyk from the very beginning. I'm helping him make the professional transition. So I've got to go through all of the pitfalls, minefields, to get him from point A to point Z without getting hurt or without losing. And so far we're, I think, 8-0, 8 knockouts.
So, the fighters that people do not associate with, apart from Klitschko, they're Eddie Chambers, Steve Upshur, Maurice Harris. Is Maurice Harris?
Yeah, that's a big. You know what? Let me say this here.
Right.
When I got Maurice Harris, he was a young kid. He wasn't a boxer. He was just running errands for people in the gym. Right. Going back to the store, buying water, buying soda, drinks and stuff. And here's a kid that never aspired to be a boxer, And I taught him from scratch how to stand up, how to jab, how to throw from scratch. And then the kid disappeared. He disappeared from the radar for about 2 years. He came back to me with 10 professional fights at 16 years old, right. 5-5 record. Right. Came back and said, "Oh, I've been abused, I've been misused. They put me in fights." I said, "You turned pro?" Yes, he turned pro at 16 years old. Wow. And I took a guy with a 5-5 record to the #1 heavyweight spot in the world. Not one time, but twice. I put him in the #1 spot, and he blew it. He just blew it. Here's a guy nobody wanted to box him during that time. Nobody wanted to box him. None of the top heavyweights wanted nothing to do with Maurice Harris. None of them. Lennox Lewis will attest to that. Lennox knew him well. Roy Jones knows him well. Those guys know him very well. And they'll tell you, nobody wanted nothing to do with him because he was that good a boxer. You know, his work ethic was terrible. Mm-hmm. You know, his work ethic was terrible. Okay. When I trained him or put him in a training camp, he'd go out and lose the fight. If I allowed him to be in the streets doing the stuff that people do in the streets, he'd win. It was crazy. It was crazy. So those are the kind of things that I can attribute to learning. Prince Nasser Hamid called me one night, 2 o'clock in the morning, from Dubai. And we were talking the way we always hash it up when he calls me. And he says to me during the conversation, he says, never say a bad word about Maurice Harris again. Because I was angry with Maurice for a long time. Because I thought this guy had all of the tools that he needed to be the champion of the world, and he didn't take advantage of it. And I said, well, why not? Why shouldn't I? I said, why shouldn't I? I wasted thousands of dollars. And he said, yeah, you made a lot more than those $1,000. And you and Harris did some great things together, you know. And you boxed Lennox, you boxed Mike Tyson virtually at the same time. If you wasn't with one, you was with the other. And you beat a lot of good fighters where you wasn't supposed to. You know, Jeremy Williams, James Thunder, you know, a host of guys. He beat a lot of good guys that he wasn't supposed to beat. So he said he made you look good. He worked for you. He did what you told him to do, you know, so don't never. And I thought about it after we hung up, and I said, yeah, well, I won't say that. I won't say anything bad about Maurice Harris ever again. I won't talk bad about him because he was right when I thought about it. Harris boxed Mike Tyson when Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson. And I mean, he'd be boxing him. And then he was boxing Lennox Lewis. So, yeah, I was kind of proud of what I achieved with Maurice Harris. I really was proud of that, you know, and I'll be proud of that till the day I'm gone. You know, the guy did some really good work for a guy. Listen, mm-hmm. Harris never had an amateur fight.
Right.
16 years old, you just jump in the water. He's fought Vaughn Bean, I believe, in his 8th or 9th fight. And was beating Vaughn Bean. And he quit on the stool because he didn't know how to handle fatigue. He didn't know how to handle his emotions. You know, if you don't know how to handle that kind of stuff, you get tired. Here's a 16-year-old kid. He had fought the who's who in the heavyweight division before he was 20 years old. So I was kind of proud of our achievements together, you know?
Okay, so then doesn't that make you in a difficult situation? You've got all this experience, but then you haven't got the what do they call it? The
accolades.
Accolades. I don't like the word accolades. Is not the. I wouldn't call it accolades.
The payoff.
No, not the payoff. There's a way you put I don't know. I don't know I don't know how to describe it, but just when you see the showcase of champions, as you talk about Emmanuel Street, you've got a showcase of champions, but yet you know that Emmanuel trained all those fighters. A lot of those fighters were either knocked out or already world champions when they came to Emmanuel. Like with yourself, you know, you've said that a lot of the fights you've had, you've done a lot of work in the gym with them, but never had the world champion behind you. Now, does that not put you in a situation where, oh well, Bashir hasn't show me Bashir's world champions. He's got no world champions, so how can he be a good trainer? That argument comes up.
I think it's a foolish argument because if you look at people who have most of the world champions, they didn't train those world champions.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're saying
world
this.
Champions were given to them. You know, some of the guys. I'm not taking anything away from their knowledge of the sport.
Right.
But I am saying that most of those guys that train those work, they haven't worked. They haven't worked. They haven't done the work. I've trained guys that nobody wanted to train. I've trained guys that was down and out. that was down and out, that was struggling, trying to learn to be a boxer. And I taught, and I'm still teaching. You know, I'm still teaching. Ask yourself, what would make an Olympic gold medalist with 300 fights out of all of the trainers in the world that he could have chosen? What would make him choose me? I only worked with him 2 days. He didn't know me from a broken phone booth. In 2 days, he says, "You're my guy." It's just a matter of what I'm telling you is what people sees, what they see.
Now the people that I know that have worked with you and have worked on pads with you or done work with have always said you're a great trainer, and I have no doubt whatsoever. I've said to many people who I talk to, say, you know what? If I ever were to step into being a full-time professional boxing coach, the person I would go and see James Ali Bashir. I would go and see him. The amount of experience he has, I would go to James Ali Bashir.
You know, I think that being studious, I think that the most vanity I find is in Britain and United States. And there's vanity, you know, vanity where people take things for granted or take things on face value without even investigating. You know, they just take it on face value. And they jump up and they say, "Oh, this guy is good, that guy is good, this guy." I see stuff on the internet and I say, I don't get it, I don't understand. Maurice Harris was a studious guy in that he could mimic. He could mimic anything. I'd show him a video and he can mimic it. You know, I say that.
Yeah.
He'd watch it and he can mimic it. I think the first big fight we had together was David Eisen. David Eisen came to America from France.
He was unbeaten, I remember.
The Carey brothers. The Carey brothers had him. And they brought him here to Atlantic City, and they called me at the last minute saying that, you know, they would give us $18,000 for an 8-round fight. And I thought, yeah, and then I looked at Eisen and I said, "Oh, no. I called him back and said, no, I don't want that, because I thought that I was putting Harris in over his head. The guy can't call back and said, "I'll give you $25,000. We need this guy in 7 days." And I asked Harris, and I showed him the tape. And Harris said, "Yeah, get him." He said, "Get him. We'll fight him." I said, "You sure?" Because this guy had knocked out 17 guys out of 18 guys. And we took the fight, and we shut him down. We beat him 8 out of 8 rounds. We beat him. I think one time he got knocked down in the second or third round, but we beat him. We shut him down. We beat him. And thus began our relationship going forward. You know, I said those guys could fight at that time. You know, they could fight. And I worked a lot of club fights. I think I learned my skills working those club fights. The early fights in Madison Square Garden, the Felt Forum, the days of the Atlantic City and the Blue Horizon. I think I honed my skills in those situations, in those scenarios. I think I honed my skills. And I've been doing this here for so long now. And now at the end of it all, I wind up training the Olympic gold medalists. You know, we have a great relationship because he's studious. You know, when you got studious people, it's easy to get things done. When you're working with wise guys, it's very difficult to get things done. And not one time in the 3 years I've been with Oleksandr Usyk has he said to me that you're overtraining me. Not one time. You know, and I've got him doing 15 rounds at least 3 times in a training camp. Wow. 15 rounds with 4 or 5 different people. Not one time has he said anything. Not one time has he gotten angry with me. Not one single time. So attitude has a lot to do with the progress of a trainer. A trainer is no better than the fighter that he trains. But when those big name trainers, when they make a mistake, everybody look the other way like it didn't happen. You know? Yeah. When the no name trainers make a mistake, guy's not good. They need to take him to so-and-so. he could do better with him. He could do better with him, you know? And most of those guys don't do the work. They don't do the work. They got other people doing the work, and they claim the glory.
Okay, I want to change themes slightly. This conversation I've had has been raging on for a while, and I want you to clean it up for me. Put me right or wrong on this. There was a fighter called Ike Ibeabuchi, the president. You remember him?
Yeah, I remember.
Now, I thought he was the best heavyweight around in that era at that time. You had Lewis, Tyson was behind bars, you had Holyfield, he'd beaten David Tua, he beat David Tua, he walked through David Tua, he knocked out Chris Berg when Chris Berg was unbeaten.
He didn't walk through David Tua.
Yes, he did.
No, it didn't. It was a good fight.
Well, he took two of his best shots and walked through.
Yeah,
but him down. He took some great shots.
I remember that fight. That was a great fight.
It was a great fight.
That was a great fight. I loved that fight. He didn't walk through him. He ate something.
But, okay. Had he been on the straight and narrow, we all know that Ike Ibeabuchi completely went off. Would he have been the best heavyweight in that era? Would he have gone on to be, in terms of fighting Holyfield, Lewis, Bowl? How would he have done against those guys?
When you say a fighter would have beat somebody, you got to look at the whole picture. When I'm looking at a fighter, when I'm thinking about greatness in a fighter, you got to look at the whole picture.
Right.
Work ethic.
Yep.
Mentality, desire.
Right.
Discipline, ambition.
Right.
He was a loose cannon. This guy was a loose cannon. I worked in the gyms in Vegas with him a couple of times, you know, right in the same gym with him. Right. The guy was a loose cannon. You never knew. I mean, he bit a fighter one day with the headgear and something. The guy's running down the street because Ike Ibeabuchi bit the guy. And the guy's running down the street. This guy's fighting him.
Well, hold on. They say Tyson was a loose cannon as well.
I worked with Mike Tyson in the camp with Maurice Harris.
Right.
And Mike, I was with Mike for 3 years. He wasn't. I didn't think he was a loose cannon. I thought he was pretty calm. You know, I thought he was pretty calm. I worked with him 3 years when he was Tyson.
Right.
You know, and then, I mean, he wasn't a bad guy. I mean, not to me, he wasn't a bad guy. I mean, maybe I wasn't there when he was snapping off on people, but he didn't do it around me.
So where would you have put? Where would Ike Ibeabuchi gone on to be world champion? That's the question. How would he have done against a Holyfield?
It's hard to say because the guy was so inconsistent.
Yeah, but look what he did against Tua and what he did against Chris Berg.
Yes, if you can just, like I said, when I look at a guy that has the potential to be world champion. Yeah. It's a whole lot of loose ends that got to be tied together to make that champion. And I don't know.
Bruce Seldon was a world champion. Axel Schultz was a world champion. I mean, Michael Moore was a world champion. Ike Ibeabuchi could have beaten those three guys? Right.
Maybe he would have if you could got him into the ring without killing somebody. Shit. The guy wasn't.
He wasn't all there.
No, he wasn't all there. You know, the guy, he was very emotional, very temperamental. You just didn't know who you was dealing with.
He was a bad man. He was a real bad man. Well, come on. Was he not a real bad man? He was a proper bad man. I mean, I don't know if he's a myth or legend or what, but I have a love for Ike Ibeabuchi. I really do.
He was a very good fighter. A very good fighter. You know, he had a chance to become world champion. But you just didn't know who you was dealing with there. I told you, he bit the guy. The guy running down the street with his headgear and gloves on.
Okay, if you had control of Ike Ibeabuchi, let's say, if you had control of Ike Ibeabuchi.
I'd have a gun with me.
Oh, my God. He was that bad. Oh, dear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, die. Oh, dear.
I think I've said maybe 20 words to him the whole time I knew him.
Really?
Yeah. I just didn't trust him. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust. There was something going on in his head, you know, that only he and himself knew about. And I got that impression in the gym.
So I guess the debate will still rage on. It will always be a fantasy whether Ike Ibeabuchi would have ever been world champion.
Yeah, I think he could have. I think he could have pulled it off on any given night. I think he could have pulled it off.
How would he have done against an Evander Holyfield? Let's say a one given night, Holyfield and Ike
It would have been a war. It would have been a war. It would have been a war. But Ibeabuchi had guns. He had guns. He had big guns, and Evander was a small heavyweight that didn't have big guns. He did his thing with consistency.
Right.
You know.
What about him versus Tyson?
Another great war. Another great war. You know, him and Tyson, him and Tua and Tyson, you know. Tua and Tyson, I mean, something I always wanted to see Tyson and Tua, see how that would have landed up, you know.
I'd love
but
to see the fight.
I think Mike was the harder puncher between all three of them.
Really?
Yeah, I think Mike had the punching power on his side. Ibeabuchi was a great puncher, but Mike was a murderous puncher.
But didn't he have a good chin as well, Ike Ibeabuchi?
Yeah, he did. But Mike Tyson had a great chin too.
And work rate?
Yeah, Mike Tyson's work rate was phenomenal.
Wasn't Ike Ibeabuchi from round 1 to round 12 against Tua? He was throwing all his punches against Tua. I mean, you know.
Yeah, they were fighting. It was a great fight. There's no denying it was a great fight.
So okay, so I guess that will always be a, you know, Lennox Lewis is a bit of an enigma when it comes to Baylor. I mean, we were meant to have got an interview done a while back, and I remember Lennox telling me that I have to be careful what I say on my Twitter page because the whole world are watching, and you never know who's watching you at the time. And you know, he popped up on my Twitter page again. He just pops up from time to time on my Twitter page. He doesn't follow me, he just pops on my Twitter page. And it was interesting. I asked him a question. I said, "For all due respect, Lennox, I'm always fascinated. You were supposed to train David Price. You said that David Price lacked, he wasn't prepared to put sacrifice in. He wasn't prepared to leave Liverpool and creature comforts. I heard that and I understood that. What always baffled me is you were prepared to train Price for a rematch against a southpaw, but you never faced a southpaw as a heavyweight champion. You never fought as a professional. You never fought one southpaw. How were you going to implement tactics to beat a southpaw wily veteran when you hadn't even boxed a southpaw yourself?" He said, "Well, there's a strategy to beat everybody." But I was like, well, yeah, that sounds great, but how are you going to implement that? So I was going to ask you, how would somebody who's never fought a southpaw as a pro, not as an amateur, as a pro, how would he implement that to help someone like David Price?
I don't think it's that deep, you know.
Really?
I don't think it's that deep.
Okay.
You know, the first man ever trained me, I think the most information I got about boxing, the most information that I ever got from a man that I understood about boxing,
right,
was my first trainer, Mr. Shirley. Frank Shirley was his name. And I'm going back to 1958, 1959.
Right.
And he would always tell me, he said, "Son," he said, "when you go out there," he said, "the ghosts of the greats are always at ringside watching you." He said, "Do them proud." And for a long time, I couldn't understand that. He said, "The ghosts of the great ones are always at ringside, and they're watching you." He said, "Go out there and do them proud." And so later on, he would say that it's what you learn about the sport in the gym, how you apply yourself. I would box this southpaw kid, and he would always beat me 2 or 3 times. Tall Puerto Rican kid, southpaw kid. I have a clue as to how to fight a southpaw. He said, "The only reason that this kid is beating you," he said, "because you always go out there with that, I know I'm going to lose attitude." And he was right. Every time they would match me up with this kid, I said, "Damn, I got to fight this guy again, you know? I can't beat him." And I would have that feeling, you know, that I'm just going to get beat again, you know? He said, to neutralize the southpaw, he said, stay as close to him as you can. He said, the guy that's backing up when an orthodox fighter versus a southpaw. He said the guy that's backing the other guy up is going to win the fight. And when I went out there and applied pressure and backed him up, I won the fight. He said because when an orthodox fighter and a southpaw is close together, it doesn't make a difference what stance they're in. It only makes a difference from a distance. When he's got that room to extend himself, that's when the style gets ugly. But if you're close to him and you're fighting with him, close to him, inside and stuff, it doesn't make a difference about the styles.
Let me ask you something from a technical standpoint. And I use this example from cricket, which I don't know how much you know about cricket. Got 3 stumps, a left stump or off stump, a middle stump and a leg stump. I said you've got a left-handed batsman and a right-handed batsman. But bottom line is, if you bowl the ball at the middle stump, regardless if it's a left hand or a right-hander, it still hits the middle pole out. So the term for a person that's a southpaw switching to an orthodox, the straight right hand, whether it be the orthodox or the straight jab, the jab or the right hand, being straight punches, would be the best punches to throw against a switch hitter. Your thoughts?
That's totally different, you know.
Okay.
If you watch Ray Leonard box southpaw,
yes,
he did everything wrong.
Okay.
According to the book.
Right.
Book says stay outside of the lead foot of the southpaw.
Right.
Basically moving to your left.
But,
you understand?
yes.
And he was always successful, even though he took a beating.
Right.
Ray would take a beating when he fought southpaws. His face would be swelled up and stuff, but he would force them backwards. When they threw their vaunted left hands, Ray would throw his right hand. That's the way he fought them. You know, he would just force them back all the time. So southpaw is awkward if you allow him to be. But the book on southpaws was the right hand lead was the kryptonite to really hurt the right hand lead from the orthodox fight was the punch that would really cripple and set the southpaw fighter in trouble.
Right.
But Mr. Shirley never taught me that there. He said, no, I want you to go out there and feint the right hand and throw the left hook to the body, and we'll get something done. And guess what? That was my rule. Feint the right hand, feint the right hand. No, you're in the southpaw stance.
Okay, so you're in the southpaw stance. So orthodox
yeah.
now. So I'm orthodox now, right?
Okay. So I'd feint the left hand, you understand?
I'd
feint the right hand.
Oh.
I'd feint the right hand, and I'd dig the left hook to the body, to the liver. The best way I can describe what I'm saying is to go to YouTube and watch the way Eddie Mustafa Muhammad fought Marvin Johnson.
Right.
And I'll show you that the right hand is not always the kryptonite. It's the left hook to the body, then the right hand. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad beat Marvin Johnson by throwing those left hooks to the body. Every time Marvin got ready to do something, Eddie would make one move, and he'd say, "Go ahead, throw your left hand. When you do, I'm gonna hit you with the left hook."
I know why. Because what happens is, as I shoot the left hand, you're slipping the left hand and in a position to shoot to the body. So left hand would be shooting across the left hand. So you're slipping under and throwing the left hook.
So that's why you can't take stuff. You know, I never take stuff for granted. And I stay close to the old school of boxing because it makes more sense. You've got to me, there's people out there that's making a mockery of the sport. With all this fancy new stuff and conditioning coaches, and you got conditioning coaches out there telling boxers what to do now. Ray Robinson, Ray Lynch, those guys didn't have no conditioning coaches. Muhammad Ali and Benny Leonard and, Henry Armstrong, the guys didn't have no, Joe Walker, they didn't have no conditioning coaches. And they were some of the finest fighters that history ever made. Now you got people out there, mockery is being made of the sport, talking out of their neck and stuff about, throw the right hand lead for a southpaw. Who said that? I think that the old man, Mr. Shirley, told me, dig that left hook in the body. He said, dig that left hook in the body. You understand? You go right to left, left to left, right to left, left to left. He said, you stay left more, you stay right. He said, keep digging the left hook. He said, when you can't hit the left hook, he said, hit the left bicep. Hit the right bicep. You know? And those old school teachings and those things. But, you know, one of the studious young men, and I work constantly because him and Maurice Harris did a lot of rounds together. Yep. And I've been around him for forever. One of the most studious guys I've ever been around in boxing is Malik Scott. Very, very studious guy. Very studious. He knows boxing.
He beat Tony Thompson.
Yeah. It's about time he woke up because he's a studious guy. He understands boxing. He's been around the game a long, long time. And he's one of the most studious young men that I've ever met in my life. He's a sponge. You know, that's why I couldn't understand him losing to Deontay Wilder.
Or Chisora.
Chisora. It's like he was in a funk or something, you know? Not saying that those guys are bad fighters. Chisora and Wilder are good fighters. But the Scott that lost to those guys, I just couldn't understand it. Or the way, maybe not that he lost, the way he lost. You know, it left me baffled, left me scratch my head because Malik Scott is a much better fighter than what he showed in those fights. I know this guy up close and personal. We've known each other since he was a very young man. I even trained him a couple of times. For a couple of fights, I trained him.
He did mention, he did say that to me.
You know, and I respect him because we had good camaraderie. We got along good. We still get along good, you know. Yeah. We made good music together in a boxing ring, you know. Yeah. Even when he's boxing Linux, a lot of times I'd work with him, you know. Yeah. And we got good chemistry, you know. He's a very studious man, and he made my efforts feel worthwhile. He made me want to work. He made me want to get up in the morning and be there for him because he just extracting something from me. There's just certain fighters that can motivate the trainer, can make the trainer raise their game to another level. And he's one of those kind of guys. He reaches in and makes me want to get up. And I can't wait to get up and work with Malik Scott because he's that kind of guy. Even in Klitschko's camp, when we're there together, we work like slaves together, you know? And we back our emotions to each other. And we sit down and we talk boxing. We sit down and talk boxing all the time. Richard Towers is another studious young man. Very, very studious. Always investigating, always want to know how can I be a better boxer. Those are the kind of guys that I thrive off of. If they never become champions, I want to work with those kind of guys. You know, I give my heart and soul to those kind of guys, you know. But Malik Scott and Maurice Harris had some gym wars. You wouldn't believe the boxing, you know. One day I'm going to find piece of them working with this young man. And you'll see some fine art of boxing. Those guys really put it in, you know.
Yeah.
And people think that, you know, if a guy does not produce a champion, you don't see those behind-the-scenes gym wars and those battles and the strategy that goes on. There's a lot of that goes on that people miss because they're on the surface. They see the fight, but they don't see what happens leading up to those fights. There's a lot of things that goes on.
Yeah, behind the scenes, absolutely.